All right, guys, what's going on? Sorry this took a little bit longer than I thought. Got a little bit busy. I tried to record this one time and I failed, so it's taking even longer. I'll try to make this short and sweet. Pretty big earnings coming up throughout tech, right? But overall, the market I think is just waiting for the elections still. I still think that's going to take precedence over everything. Obviously, FOMC is the same week as the elections, which is absolutely absurd. So this 2 week period, I'm really going to emphasize just staying alive. It's not important to catch things before they happen. It's okay to catch them after and just understand that things will likely trend that way, right? So very, very important to kind of keep yourself controlled, not be impulsive. But yeah, I mean, this is a crazy period that we're about to go into. I'll start with IWM next, but really the earnings catalysts here are pretty insane. My big focus really is going to be AMD, which is Tuesday after the close, since I already have 10 contracts on this. If we can get above that 162 spot I've mentioned multiple times, I'd be happy to add in any pullbacks that hold above that. Or right if this just rips to 176, 180, that's fine. I have 10 contracts. Those will print, so that's not that big of a deal. But yeah, ideally we can get some kind of bullish move above 162, and I'd be happy to add into those. And we still have plenty of time on those contracts, so nothing crazy. But overall, this is going to be a big watch for me on Tuesday. Google's going to be a big thing, guys. This is a big, big one that I'll keep my eyes on. But really, Wednesdays when a lot of tech or QQQ reports, right? We have Microsoft, we have Meta. Coin's going to be huge. Robinhood's going to be huge. I know I've been watching Roku for a while. Roku's going to be up there, which will be a fun watch. I really don't care about Uber or Peloton. Really, Thursday after the close, I'll be watching Amazon, Apple, and then Intel, right? Intel's a big one. I have a pretty good position in that one for June of 2025. So I'm really excited to see how Intel ends up reporting. And then obviously I've talked a lot and extensively about ZOM and XLE as a whole, but ZOM I want to see how they end up doing off of that pretty insane setup they have on the daily. There might be an opportunity to trade that after earnings. But yeah, guys, it's just a huge earnings season coming up, especially with all the other outside volatility that could be pushed into the market from the uncertainty of the election. FOMC rates are coming up that same week, and just this window of weakness that we're in as well, right? Until that election period, could these names sell theoretically? Absolutely. And really, going into this week too, we've talked a lot about data sets and which ones are the most important. Obviously, FOMC takes the helm of that, but if we talk about NFP and JOLTS, usually we'll see NWOGs and we'll either see a gap up and a distribution, or we'll see a gap down, accumulation, and then NFP or JOLTS will kind of reverse that in favor of either the accumulation or the distribution. Right now, it looks like we're actually gapping up across the board. So I did have 40 contracts on QQQ on Friday. Luckily, before close, I trimmed those down to 5. So if we gap up, I'll probably close those last 5 for a loss. And really, I'll start either looking at IWM or QQQ for a potential distribution to play out if this gap up holds. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of where my eyes will be. We have, let's go back really quickly. I was a week ahead on this one. But you guys can see, right? Monday is kind of just a day to watch. It's always been that way. But Tuesday, we have JOLTS. Wednesday, we have GDP. Thursday, we have PCE. And then Friday, we have NFP, right? So just need to see what Monday ends up doing. Do we hold the gap up? Do we sell prior to that? And it's really important to kind of watch. But if there is going to be a gap up, I'll really be watching IWM. I think that's my favorite one here. We're starting to see a little bit of slippage on this daily chart here against this higher low trend line. And if we start to slip underneath not only the higher low trend line, but this little pivot that we had from Wednesday, which is marked here with the black line right around 217.37, what I'll look to do is more than likely take 212 puts. I think that we can really slip underneath this little higher low that was found here, right around 215 flat, or to 214.60, right? And I think we can make our way down into this unfilled gap here, right? With this little gap up, let's grab this, make it go up a little bit more. And that really starts right around 211.64. I'd be looking to take the 212 puts. And yeah, I mean, I think that we can definitely see some uncertainty in the market, and with that uncertainty, a lot of these rate cut names or rate sensitive names that really rallied because of the, the possibility of further rate cuts. I know a lot of them already rallied because of the initial rate cut, but we could see that frothiness get really sucked out of the market as we approach more uncertainty in the market from the elections, from this window of weakness that obviously we'll start to see flows not really support these moves any higher, which we saw, right? We saw that with QQQ. We've been very, very sticky in this against this dark pool print ever since those flows left the market, and we're kind of seeing that start to really reflect in IWM in terms of already selling, right? On QQQ, we did have that UTAD that popped out a little bit and maybe baited in some bulls, but this is a more messy chart, right? You guys can see we've been in a range here for a little bit longer, this entire range here. Whereas if we take a look at IWM, looks a little bit more sound, right? This has a clear potential higher low trend line here, really clean pivot from that Wednesday low, and a very, very clean higher low that we can trade to, in my opinion. It's not as sticky, right? You guys can see price has pretty much been in a downtrend since I would say like this Thursday candle, right, where we hit our top and have been selling ever since. So really, under 217.37, I'd be looking for 212 puts and probably targeting 214, and then ideally we can get a big flush down to that 211.64 to 212. Once again, I'll be using the 11.15, so the November 15th. That should give me exposure, in theory, to not only the November elections, but should give me exposure as well to like a majority of the tech earnings. Give me a little bit of time after that as a buffer to add into anything if I need to do so. But that looks like the sweet spot. Those are trading around $200.20 for the like 212, I believe, or maybe the 209 can work as well. But this chart looks super, super good if it can fade underneath the trend line and that little Wednesday low, right around 217. And then the second chart that I'm looking at, guys, is Tesla. I've talked about this one. I still have the 1220 300 calls, which should be close to green, if not already green, because of this move here. So really what I'm looking to do is add into those contracts. I have no reason to really deviate away from them. But really what I'm looking for is this is already gapping up overnight, guys, in the 24-hour market. It's at 271. So if this can pull back from 271 and hold to this 265 zone, which is this weekly lower high range, as you guys can see, right? We have this lower high here, lower highs here, lower highs here, and then we're going into an extremely strong weekly bar with virtually no upside wick, right? This is a clean bar, so we want to expect a continuation off of this, but I would like to see just some kind of pullback, 265 hold, and then I would look for this to trade up to 279.56, which is the start of the gap up here, and then really finish around 291, right? So 300 calls are the sweet spot in my opinion. Target would be 291. And I'd be looking for 265 here to hold. Now, if we end up gapping underneath 265 or something like that, really what you want to see is the peg get protected. So if this ends up kind of coming down, you would expect this to reject. And really, we just want to see 240, 265 hold, which would be the start of this green box. And what you want to see, worst case scenario, guys, if it loses 242, is it hold this gap within a gap, right? So with this green box is the peg candle, or I shouldn't say peg candle, but the peg gap, the power earnings gap, and then within that is another gap that didn't get filled. So we have almost a double liquidity void here where there's not a lot of trading volume, and this could really seep underneath if buyers are bidding and we're seeing simultaneous selling. But if this does lose 242, we want to at the very least see this 232.34 hold. Is that right? Yeah, 232.34, which is the top of the secondary gap, and then a push back above, reclaim the peg, and then make its way back up to 265, right? That's worst case scenario. I just want to toss that out there. Right now, we are currently gapping up, so this is going to be what takes precipice, which is this, it's at 271, I believe. So maybe just a pullback, hold 265, rally to 279.56, high tight flag, breaking base, right, and then a continuation to fill the gap and hit target at 291. And I would add into the 1220 calls, like I said, those 300s right here. So easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Those are the only two charts that I really want to focus on. IWM, Tesla, that's really it. And everything else is kind of already I guess we're already positioned for, right? I mean, it's just kind of adding dips on things if needed, but just staying patient, right? I really don't feel like I need to go and search for any other charts in this kind of environment. If anything, I want to add one or two, which I did, and one of them's a short-based idea, one of them's a long-based idea, right? And I already have exposure to that long-based idea here on Tesla, just potential adds on these ones. And that's really all I want to cover kind of going into this week. Everything else, like I said, just kind of adding as needed. Crowd held this 299 to 302 level pretty nicely. We saw some good volatility on Friday with that news catalyst. And like I said, right, a lot of that volume actually came from this buying candle here, right? I mean, it sold rather quickly, and then somebody came in off of that higher low trend line and came on at that bottom of that wick. And then as soon as it had potential to really kind of push underneath that hourly low, which was that news candle, it really just started to trade back up, right? And then we got a good close back above our green zone here, which is that old high, right? When now we have potential to turn this into support. We've been doing pretty good, right? This weekly looks healthy in my opinion. So no real reason to be in jeopardy or be alarmed by this just yet. So I'm just kind of watching this one. Those contracts, I'm glad I switched and I went to the 1220 because those have a pretty tight bid-ask spread. Open interest is a lot better, so the contracts aren't as spready. And they are expensive, I know that, but for the most part, I've been pretty well protected in them. But that's a big one. I'll talk about MU in a little bit. We'll see what this ends up doing off of this daily bar here. As long as we kind of hold around 108 and hold above 105, I think this is fine. I'm not too worried about that one. Intel, right, earnings is coming up, but this needs to hold above 21.98. It's pretty simple. AMD, we've talked about this one. It reclaimed that 155 spot, which was that huge Tuesday low. We can pretty much get rid of everything else, right? I don't think anything else really matters. It's just all came down to this trendline retest, and then that Wednesday low or that Tuesday low, whatever I said. It looks like it swept under just a little bit, right? You guys can see they kind of dug everybody out pretty deep, but they closed back above. So this is a really crazy chart in my opinion. Still, I'm not going to add into this one. We need this to get back above this, right? Trade to the top of this at 165, pull back, hold, and I'll add into these, and ideally we can get that continuation up to 180. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. QQQ though, I mean, I'd rather trade IWM. Like I said, the chart's not as crazy on IWM. It's a little bit easier. But QQQ is still of interest, guys. I want you guys to bookmark this because this looks exactly like a distribution, right? With a UTAD above this hourly zone, right? If we kind of just, it is in extended hours. It's off extended hours. This little zone right here, guys, is almost perfect, right? So if this can trade down to this 492 spot, maybe bounce and get a lower high off of this now gap here, right? So kind of do something like this, bounce, lower high, sell again. Maybe it'll retest this little black line here, but you guys get the point, right? Come down to this 488 and then sell, take out this buy side liquidity here at 46 and then trade down to this gap, right? This thing can get pretty vicious really quickly, especially with a lot of earnings coming up this week that are very tech heavy. Apple, Amazon, Meta, Microsoft, Google, guys, just a ton of names that really dictate this this ETF, right? This could get nasty. Like I said, I mean, you could take QQQ over IWM. I just want to keep these, on deck because I still have those 10 contracts, guys, that I talked about for the 1107 or the 1108. I forgot what expiration that I said I was going to hold, and I'm still planning on holding them. I'd rather trade IWM with more of my size, but yeah, this chart still looks really good, and this is nasty. This is a clear liquidity sweep on higher volume, so ideally this can get a really big flush down, maybe one more distribution around this like 480 or 498 zone because this is currently gapping up. Yeah, and we'll see what this ends up doing, but this looks like a UTAD, guys. I'm not gonna lie. So if you guys are in QQQ a little bit heavier, I would just kind of keep my risk against that Friday or Wednesday high. Or I'm sorry, I don't know why I said that Friday high. And really just kind of looking for this to move in a bigger fashion down to like I would say 478 to 471 before or a little bit after the elections. But yeah, I think I'm going to stick with IWM, Tesla, right? IWM short, Tesla long. We'll just see what they end up doing. And that's pretty much the scan, guys. That's all I wanted to go over. Just keep it safe this week. Keep it tight. Don't do anything crazy. Remember, the whole goal is to get past the elections, right? It absorbed that dip as long as the chart gives you the opportunity and it still looks healthy, right? So that's really all, guys. That's all I wanted to talk about. Appreciate you guys. I will see you guys tomorrow. Remember, tomorrow is probably going to be a very inactive day. That should be fine with a lot of you guys. That's what I've been doing for a while now on Mondays, just letting price do its thing. And yeah, especially on data heavy weeks, I really don't want to do much on a Monday. Okay, so I'll see you guys on Monday, and let's take it easy.